warum Gabi nicht in der
Good morning again, Ms. Lazar. If you can please press the mic and cam button, it's just to check who should be given the floor first for the presentation.
For our
So, because you
presentation,
have a
Joe
shared
White,
presentation, right?
yes, for our presentation, Joe White will be first.
Joe
And
will
as
be
I know,
first, and then it will be you. And
yes, and
when, okay.
we switch slides. So she presents a few slides, then I present, then she presents again. Is it a problem?
Yeah, no, it's fine. The PPT will be displayed all throughout. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Of this intergroup, my calls goes to all of you. Please, political group leaders in the Conference of the Presidents. And then last, invitation of the IFAF, so event in support of Blue Speeds campaign to help to create a safer and quieter ocean for whales. During this month's mini plenary session on the 25th January, a giant inflatable whale will wait for you on Place de Luxembourg between 12 and 3:30 and will shed light on IFAF's Blue Speeds. I don't know exactly again. IFAS. It's an abbreviation for
International Fund for Animal Welfare.
It's the International Fund for Animal Welfare. I looked it half it already in the past, but I forgot again. So the IFAS Blue Speeds campaign for quieter whales, especially vulnerable to the effects of shipping nose and are frequently exposed to the danger of ship strikes. So the giant whale will remind about this and will be available for photo ops, and IFAF volunteers will welcome you for a chat about this campaign. So you will also get the chance then to sign also the Blue Speed petitions and meet French journalists making a TV documentary about the campaign, get a nice cup of coffee, it's always welcome, and play an entertaining sound game. IFAF warmly invites you to join the event after the plenary vote. So IFAF Whale and team are looking forward to seeing you. And then, just on the bureau meeting of the Animal Welfare Intergroup, I would like to remind the board members of the Intergroup that the next bureau meeting will be held on Tuesday, 30th of January from 2 to 3 p.m. So please, bureau members, please, I hope you can be there. So again, as usually, let me remind you that this meeting is live streamed on Interaxio, and the meeting will be recorded, and the video recording and presentations will then be available to the Intergroup website. And interpretation, thank you to the interpreters, will be done in English, French, German, Italian, and Polish. So, voila, now we come to the core subject of this morning. I now give over to Iris Baumgartner, as I say already, project manager at the Animal Welfare Foundation, to speak about the animal welfare's NGOs' point of view regarding the new proposal for regulation on the protection of animals during transport. Dear Iris, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Dear President of the Intergroup and dear members of the Intergroup, thanks for the opportunity to present you the point of view of the animal welfare NGOs on the long-awaited proposal for the protection of animals during transport. Next page, please. Thank you for the nice introduction. So you already know my name is Iris Baumgartner, working for the Animal Welfare Foundation, and I have a history of 25 years working on animal transport. Next page, please. We know that the European citizens are calling for shorter journey times, and there was a large body of evidence provided in the past by NGOs, by scientific bodies, by committees on the existing gaps, on the enforcement gaps. And a special thank you, I want to say, to the ANIT committee who investigated animal transport for 1.5 years and clearly identified all the critical areas of the regulation and what the impact this has on the animals. Next page, please. So the key areas are the export of animals to third countries, journey times, transport of vulnerable animals, surface area, temperatures, and enforcement. And what we want is a revised transport regulation that should adhere to the 3R principle: reducing, refining, and replacing live transport. Next, please. But to start with some positive aspects of the proposal, we have a 9-hour journey time limit for slaughter animals, but this is not including all animals going for slaughter, unfortunately. But we have included transport of fish. We have better provisions for the transport of animals in containers. We see an attempt to stop assembly center hopping by quite good definitions on the place of departure and destination. We see updated space allowances, real-time traceability, and finally, minimum transport ages for the transport of unweaned animals. Next, please. So, journey times. Journey times in the proposal are shortened for some categories of animals, but we still have long and very long journeys foreseen in the proposal. Next, please. So I prepared an overview of most of the journey times that are now in the regulation. We cannot go through all of this now, but I hope we have later time in the debate to look at some of them. Next page, please. Here I just want to highlight some of the very critical parts where we really have to fight against, which is still the derogation for the 8-hour limit for unweaned animals. And it is 10 hours still for end of career laying hens. This is including loading and unloading. And we know from Eyes on Animals, who really have a lot of experience with the transport of poultry, that they are saying clearly this makes a lot of pressure on the catchers, and it will even end in more animals with fractures. So this loading and unloading definitely has to stay separated from the journey time. Next page, please. And here we have, of course, no time limit for transport by sea. It's unbelievable incomprehensible after all the evidence that was provided, but I also hope we can come back to this and look into this in detail in the debate later. Next, please. So we still have exports to third countries being allowed according to the proposal. The objectives of the Commission are just new rules, which are, for example, animal welfare officers, a veterinarian on the first journey by sea, vessels under white and grey flags, but this will still allow more than 50% of the fleet now to continue. And we have so-called certification bodies in third countries that should allow enforcement in third countries. And I also hope we can come back to this very interesting point, because we had this in the past when we still had subsidies being paid and it didn't work. And we really have doubts that with these new rules, the ECG ruling will be ensured outside the EU. Next page, please. So if we, of course, ask for a ban for live animals to third countries, but if they would continue, we would need journey time limits for transport by sea. We are asking for a veterinarian on all journeys by sea. We are asking for the approval of vessels only flying under the white flag and being classified by a society being a member of IX. We also ask for a classified vessel approval team. And what we need is that rejected animals must be returned to the EU alive. I mean, we all remember the terrible odyssey of the animals on the El Beik and on Karim Allah. And after months, they had been slaughtered in Spain. So this is shocking, but next page, please. What we hardly don't know are all the smaller disasters that are happening on transports by road in third countries, like, for example, at the Turkish border. We have just got the information in September last year that a consignment from Romania was rejected by the Turkish officials with 40 pregnant heifers on board, and they had been confined inside the vehicle for 3 weeks. When we arrived there, the animals had already been sold to Iraq. They were on the way to Iraq, but we learned from the workers there that 3 animals had given birth and they died under terrible conditions on the truck. But this is not a single case, because Animals Angels and we had been inspecting 833 animal trucks at the Turkish border, and 405 of these trucks, so almost 50%, had waiting times inside the border of more than 6 hours. And as you can see here in these graphs, there are also 23% of trucks having waiting times of 24 to 72 hours, and almost 5% waiting times of more than 72 hours. And this means, of course, also in summer when you have easily temperatures of 40 degrees at the border. So we really need the mandatory re-import of animals if they are rejected. Next page, please. So the temperature measures, there are some temperature measures foreseen for the transport of animals, but unfortunately, poultry, rabbits, laboratory animals, dogs and cats are excluded from this. And we also have doubts how this should be enforced, these journey times, and especially the temperature measures for poultry and rabbits only foresees something for end of laying hens that should be a temperature of 15 degrees inside the vehicle, but there is nothing foreseen for the transport of rabbits and poultry during high temperatures. There are no limits, and this is totally against EFSA recommendations. Next page, please. So we are asking for inside temperatures still recorded, and we need limits, as it was in the one 2005. It would be good to check also humidity, because it really affects the welfare of the animals. We need temperature thresholds also for lower temperatures, and they should be science-based. Next page, please. So in regards of enforcement and sanctions, we see some improvements because there's more clarity on certain provisions that will make the life of law enforcers easier. We have defined weaning ages for the young animals. We have species-specific provisions on the height that should be allowed in the truck. We have finally clearly the requirement that unweaned animals needs to be fed on board of a truck. Before it was always questions, is water enough? But now it's clearly written they need food. And we have clear responsibilities for organizers. We have real-time traceability on long journeys. And the proposal makes an attempt to make sanctions dissuasive and harmonized. So it's foreseen to have high financial penalties in the case of serious infringements. Next page, please. What is missing are obligations for the competent authorities to carry out more and frequent controls and inspections. And we see a problem because, in our opinion, even with this proposal, there will be even more duties on the member state officials and on the EU Commission. And we are questioning if there are enough resources for this. Next page, please. And the conclusions are that this proposal for animal transport falls short in making significant improvements for the welfare of animals. On some species and category, it may even have a negative impact. It still permits long and extremely long journeys for animals within the EU and to third countries. Next page, please. And the proposal fails to introduce measures which favor slaughter of animals locally. When 9 hours are still allowed, this is not really initiating local slaughter. And it's impossible replacing transport of live animals with transport of carcasses, meat and semen with this proposal. Thank you. So thank you, and we hope that now the Parliament will push for really changing the rules. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this excellent and very clear presentation on where we stand now with this proposal. knowing that it is not foreseen now on the agenda, on the Belgian agenda, but we keep on pushing that at least we could start working on it. So I now hand over to the two representatives from Human Behavior Change, Joe White and co-director, and Eva Lazar, specialist team. Dear both, the floor is yours if we get you online. Thomas, you want to add something? Later, okay. Of course, of course. Okay. You have the floor, please. Yes, and then afterwards we'll have some time for questions and remarks on the both presentation on the two topics. Yeah, please, you have the floor. Sorry for that, Joe.
Hello, and thank you very much for the opportunity to talk at the Animal Welfare Intergroup. My name is Joe White. I'm co-founder and co-director of Human Behavior Change for Life, and I'm joined by one of our HBCL specialists, Eva Lazar. We're delighted to be joining you for this meeting and presenting the findings from this innovative research covering the business case of transporting carcasses over live animals. HBCL specialises in understanding the intricacies of human behaviour and unlocking human potential. We work internationally supporting organisations to utilise evidence-based approaches to understand complex systems and develop actionable strategies that deliver positive impact. The findings of this research present a compelling case evidencing the benefits of a carcass trade, economically, environmentally, societally, and for animal welfare. Next slide, please. During the session, we will provide you with insights into the research journey, which is the first of its kind, including the findings, the process used, the routes and the data examined, and the next steps. The goal was to examine the business case for a carcass trade in comparison to the live trade in animals transported for slaughter from the EU to third countries. This involved understanding the situation, identifying the opportunities and the challenges, and showing the possibilities for change. It's hoped that the findings of this research will be used by stakeholders to understand and utilise these benefits as they've been identified. A shift in practice has positive gains which would increase alignment with societal values. Next slide, please. The research provides evidence of the benefits of moving to a carcass trade, and these include that the live trade in animals is more expensive than the carcass trade. It is 2.5 times more costly per kilo, meaning that the live trade results in a reduced profit. The live trade is harming the environment, as we've already heard. The live trade CO2 equivalent emissions are nearly 6 times greater, and the fuel consumption is 6.5 times higher than the carcass trade per kilo of meat. Research shows that citizens want to see a carcass trade. This misalignment of beliefs and actions forces people to live with cognitive dissonance. And the slaughter close to the farm of origin removes the need for long-distance transport and its negative impacts on animal welfare. It also decreases the risk of spreading harmful diseases. There is a compelling business case for change, saving money and increasing profit, reducing the negative impact on the environment, aligning practice and societal views and beliefs, lowering the risk of spreading disease, and improving and protecting animal welfare. Next slide, please.
This research addresses an evidence gap. While useful work has been undertaken examining the transport of animals for slaughter within the EU, there was a void of evidence regarding the economic, environmental, and social impact of the live trade in animals for slaughter compared to the carcass trade when moving from the EU to third countries. The methodology used to gather, analyze, and model the data has provided insights that shine a light on the opportunities and what action is needed now. Next slide, please. We mapped the stakeholders involved in the industry and looked at both the global trade and 3 case examples to gain a deeper insight. The case example of sheep movement from Portugal to Israel, shown on this map, was used for the final modeling and analysis. Please note that this work was conducted before the recent conflict. This dual approach of looking at the wider context at the same time as the case example provided rich data and insight. Next slide, please.
We mapped the complexity of the live compared to carcass trade, and what was evident was the live trade required greater resources. For example, the personnel working with the animals at different stages, increased costs due to animal food, water and bedding, and the energy to support these activities. What became abundantly clear through the research is that the live trade is inefficient due to the number of stages involved and the resources required when compared to the carcass trade. Put simply, the carcass trade is much shorter in terms of the numbers of stages from farm to slaughter than that of the live trade, which involves lots of stages from European farm to a third country slaughterhouse. The case example of Portugal to Israel has shown that these additional stages of the live trade took around 9 days longer compared to the carcass trade. The extra days incur additional costs and resources, and as we've already heard, impact negatively on animal welfare. The multiple stages increase the stress of the animal due to changes in the environment and regrouping of stock. This causes weight loss and increases disease and mortality. As a result, to achieve the slaughter weight, the animals need additional food and water to reach the desired weight, which begins with putting the weight lost as a consequence of the stresses back on in a circle of being fattened, losing weight, and being refattened, increasing the production costs. In contrast, the animals slaughtered near to the farm of origin only need to be fattened once. The shorter the chain, the shorter the time and the fewer stages involved, the fewer resources needed, which means reduced economic and environmental costs and improved animal welfare. Next slide, please.
In our main case example, we first researched sheep production and consumption in both countries and the trade flow from Portugal to Israel. Step by step, the complexity of the current practices was unveiled. Portugal can produce more than enough sheep to meet its in-country demand. However, working at a third of their capacity, the Portuguese slaughterhouses produce less than half of the sheep meat needed. Therefore, Portugal imports both carcasses and live sheep, while exporting live sheep abroad, being the main provider of sheep to Israel. While it is a profit source for a few, the many lose out. In this case, the Portuguese farmers, the consumers, the environment due to needless use of resources, and the animals themselves. It also adds a burden for officials working to enforce the animal welfare legislation during live animal transport. Then we looked at the potential carcass trade, which would simplify and shorten the process by removing part of the chain. By this, resources could be redeployed or protected. This would reduce the costs for the advantage of the industry's profit margins and would result in lower prices for the consumer, offering societal benefits through improved sustainability and pro-environmental practices. Hundreds of thousands of sheep would not suffer unnecessarily exhausting travels yearly. And the Israeli government incentivizes the meat import. The custom tariffs are waived only for meat, but not for the live trade. However, our research continued with an even more detailed economic modeling. Next slide, please. This diagram is a simplified visual representation to show the staged approach developed in the model, enabling data comparison between scenario 1, the existing live trade, and scenario 2, the carcass trade. The model's approach is pioneering, providing a blueprint for future work looking at the business case of the movement of animals from and to anywhere in the world. Next slide, please.
This research has shone a spotlight on the opportunities for the industry, for the economy, for the environment, for society, and for animal welfare. The business case demonstrates the benefits of a carcass over a live trade, including saving money, time and resources to increase profit margins, which could reduce costs to the consumer. Lowering emissions using less fuel to move towards sustainable agriculture. It aids in protecting health and reducing the risk of spreading diseases. A carcass trade aligns with public opinion, and it's a simple answer to addressing animal welfare issues that continue to occur due to the long-distance transport of animals, offering sustainable improvements, not a sticking plaster. It would also reduce the complexity and burden of enforcing legislation around animal transport, possibly eliminating it, meaning much needed resources could be redeployed. The research has shown that there is a business case which could benefit the industry and trade, benefit society, animal welfare and the planet. To sum up, this is a complex system. Next slide. To sum up, this is a complex system which requires engagement and co-creation with different stakeholders to leverage the benefits identified. Regarding next steps, we recommend that the further application of this innovative research approach is taken. Human behavioural science and practice should be central to this work as change is needed. By taking this approach, it is possible to develop an effective pathway to delivering positive change that will enable the sector to utilise this business case to their benefit and the benefit of others. Action is needed, and it is needed now. Please do let us know if you're interested in supporting this work. Finally, thanks go to everyone who contributed to this research, which has been needed for some time. We thank you for listening and open for questions.
Thank you very much for this presentation, also very clear and definitely a study that we need to spread and to make known because it's really a win-win-win-win situation if we would move to the transport of meat and carcasses. Now I open the floor for questions, remarks, and I'm happy because we have some time to discuss. And the first one was really Thomas. And then I will take, of course, also the others on board. Yeah, Aurélie and Niels. Yeah, Thomas, but you have, and I don't know your name, I'm sorry.
Okay, no, thank you, Chair. Two questions. One going to Iris. You talked about the ships. I mean, it's absolutely unacceptable that there's no proposal for maximum transport times. So it's again a proposal saying, okay, it's a transport on ship, but we don't limit the time as we do it with trucks. That's impossible. But then when it comes to the white and gray flags, we currently have, well, let's say public debate. I would rather call it a scandal. Brought up by, again, civil society activity on exports of Austrian cattle, breeding cattle to Algeria. And guess what the ship's name is, which they were transported with? It's Karimala. And it has a gray flag. And it would still be allowed to transport. And we know exactly from this ship, we know actually quite a lot on what the conditions on board are because of this scandal. And it's not fit for purpose. Even though we would like to, stop the transport at all, but still, this is so. You said 50% of the ships could still be on and running if we have white and gray flag. Could you distinguish between white and gray flag also? Because what I learned is that Irish authorities, as far as I know, only let white flagged ships entering their port even. Yeah? So could you make a distinction and also maybe reflect on this gray flag ships, whether this is of any use, the proposal from the Commission? And then just a minor thing where maybe I didn't listen properly. I guess the proposal from the Commission that unweaned calves may only be transported after or within the 5th week of age. That I would consider they were following scientific advice. I don't know if you mentioned it or what your perspective is on that. Beyond the question on transport times and feeding, but to establish the principle that no calf can be transported younger than 5 weeks, I thought this was also covering the demands of the inquiry committee and of the scientific, let's say, scientific view. And then I have a question to the second presenters. Thanks very much also for your presentation. I'm very much looking forward to use it. Two questions on content. You said you said there's 4.5 times or even 6 times more fuel used if you transport live animals. Could you tell me how much you took into regard, let's say, the additional energy that is needed for cooling, which is, I would say, the main argument that I have heard against this proposal, not just that the ships are not yet available, but I question that. But that this would actually need more energy to do the cooling all the way. Maybe you can elaborate whether you took this into account and give us some numbers on that. And the second is you were saying you were doing research on reduced spreading of disease. We also managed to get an EFSA opinion done, also based on the call of the Parliament. I mean, the outcome was, I would say, they were not brave enough to really say what's going on straightforward, but at least you could see that, especially the spread of multi-resistant bacteria, which is also causing quite a human death toll, not just animal death toll across the European Union. So which data did you use on spreading of multi-resistant bacteria? And if you did not only use the EFSA opinion, which other research did you base your assessment on? That would be highly interesting also for me to find out. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And as there were already 3 questions in all, I would suggest that we reply immediately, and then I come to Aurélie, to Niels, and to the other people who want to ask questions. Please, yes.
Yeah. I first replied to the question regarding the flags. I mean, we have to keep in mind that the flag doesn't say anything about if the design on the vessel is adequate for animals. It's just about the performance of the flag and about the number of detentions they had during the port state controls. And you are correct, in the Irish regulation, they are requesting vessels under a white flag, and it was even the recommendation in the Commission's network document to have only white flags vessels approved, and also to have the classification society being a member of IEX, because we have to keep in mind many of these classification societies are not really considered serious. You know, they are giving the approval of the railings, that they can keep the strength, but only 12 members societies are considered serious, and they should be, part of this proposal. And I think the next question was about the calves. You are correct. We think it's good that there is a minimum age of weeks, but we are still talking about unweaned animals that are on a milk diet, and we really are afraid that with this new proposal, with a request for drinking system on board, we will continue for the next 20 years to provide evidence that it's not working, because we have seen such systems and it's not possible to provide a drink to each of the animals on board. It's just not possible. So, did I reply to your questions, Thomas? Okay.
Thank you very much. And the other question, the third question of Thomas, was to the other experts on the energy needed for cooling. Indeed, that is the arguments that we hear a lot, why it is not so interesting economically, or it would not be, but you prove the contrary. So please, do you have information, data about the energy needed for cooling the carcasses, the meat? I go back to Joe or Eva.
Yes, thank you very much for the question. In terms of the cooling, you raise a very good point, which is something that we had to consider within this research modelling. In relation to the cooling costs, one of the things we were looking at was the fact that we have to also take into account economies of scale. It's possible with the carcass trade to carry a lot more carcasses than it is with the live trade, due to the means of transport and actually how you can physically and logistically move those quantities. Obviously, live animals need more space, and also taking into account kind of their daily feeding requirements, etc. It means that there is more space on the shipment being taken up. In terms of the economy of scales, it means that you can transport more increased numbers of carcasses compared to live animals. So this is where it starts to counter the costs in relation to the higher costs of actually using refrigeration equipment. So that's one of the main reason, the main driver behind the difference in the costs. Taking the second question regarding reduction in the spread of disease, this was not the focus of the study, but it's something that came up time and time again in terms of the review of the literature that we undertook, and also we surveyed and interviewed people, stakeholders from different elements of the industry. And this is a point that came up time and time again in terms of kind of the feedback. So while it wasn't a main sort of area for us to focus on, it's something that we thought was important to report on because it does then have an impact from a point of view of the economics. I'll just hand over to my colleague if she wants to add anything on there. Thank you.
Yes, just a detail about the fuel consumption and refrigeration, the relationship between. We not only considered fuel consumption, but also considered emissions needed higher when refrigeration is in use. And we calculated them at a maximum possible. For example, for one transport, we calculated 1,800 containers, and we calculated the fuel consumption and the emissions for that kind of transport. But at the end, when we went down to divide the prices and calculated the production price per kilogram of meat, these were the differences we found. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think the questions were all answered. Thank you for that precision zone. And then I give the floor to Aurélie Beigneux, please. You have the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Transport of live animals is a delicate issue, we all know, but it's crucial because every year thousands of live animals are transported in death convoys through Europe and the entire world. The lack of strict rules and dissuasive exemplary sanctions creates totally unworthy transport conditions, and it's our duty to urgently act collectively to ensure that the basic rights of these animals are respected. They have a status and they are sensitive. They face long, tiring journeys. They have no care, food, or are ill-treated. That's become the norm, basically, in many cases. But the European Commission seems to show a lack of commitment and sincerity in terms of animal well-being. There are cases of ill-treatment increasing during transport, and even though we complain, not much is done. It's high time that the European Commission shoulders its responsibilities and introduces stricter rules and imposes truly dissuasive sanctions on those people who do not respect existing standards. Now, we mentioned certain avenues recently, firstly, avoiding transporting live animals, providing better information to consumers so that they can make enlightened choices. That's also important. And giving some monetary value to animal suffering, reflected in the cost of meat. And we have to also have a better feeding system. Animal welfare is a political issue, but we really have to overcome the differences in respect of animals. And that's to do with the text and amendments we've been talking about. By working together, we can give animals the dignity they deserve. My question for the next report on transport of animals, what are you thinking about, taking account, obviously, of the many recommendations already made to ensure that specific measures are finally introduced and indeed implemented? Thank you.
Du coup, merci beaucoup. Oui, en espérant aussi que vous allez convaincre.
Thank you so much. Yes, I hope that you'll be able to convince the other members of your party too. Well, another point is that when we put forward sensible amendments, maybe in your political group you could also take this into account. I talk about animal welfare, and I really don't think that politics in itself should really be predominant. Yes, absolutely. Just a question.
For me, that was her whole presentation was about what needs to change. But maybe you want to, is there something you want to add to your presentation? But because indeed your question was a little bit the presentation, or is there some more very specific, est-ce qu'il y a un point très particulier que vous vouliez encore adresser? Parce que
if there's anything specific you still want to talk about, because as far as I'm concerned, the question was more or less the whole of the presentation. Yes, and we wanted to preempt the next report on animal transport, taking account of everything which has been studied during the ANIC committee to see if this time specific measures are indeed going to be implemented.
C'est à la commission, ouais. But Iris, if you want to react, please.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not really sure if I understood your question. So, yeah, it's more or less, there are many provisions. Some of them may improve the welfare of animals. Other provisions may even lead to deterioration of animal welfare, especially if we talk about poultry. We really think there needs to be improvements for poultry. Now it's even written in the proposal that poultry can be caught hanging by the legs in a reversed position, which is also totally not in line with EFSA. So we really are asking for more scientific based requirements in the new legislation. So did I reply to your question?
Oui, je me permets de rebondir aussi.
Well, allow me to make a further comment. There are pictures which we see in France, a slaughterhouse where animals were cut into pieces and they hadn't died, they hadn't been killed. I think that those are barbaric acts, and I believe that we need to fight this. There's legislation, but no control. You can see this in the transport of animals and also in slaughterhouses. So we really need to do something about this.
Don't make too long speeches, because I still have now 4 people who want to take the floor. Even if I totally agree on what was said, I give the floor now to Niels, please.
Thank you very much. I have a couple of questions. As far as I read the new proposal, the maximum journey time will be 21 hours for when you transport pigs. I don't know if you read it the same way, but I mean, today you can transport pigs for 24 hours, so you improve the time by 3 hours. Do you know of any arguments for why 21 hours should be a good number? As far as I'm concerned, it should be way lower than that. I would argue that we should have a max of 8 hours. But are there any science behind this 21 number, according to you? And then second, when we talk about exports to third countries, I would like to ban them. I think many people here would. But they don't do that in the proposal. Instead, they have a proposal of some kind of officers that should be on the transport and see that everything is according to the plan. How do you, or according to the rules, how do you assess that idea? Do you think that will lead to improvements? Thank you.
And as I see the time running, I also take immediately the question of Michal also, please, if you want.
Okay, the problem is that I don't have a question, I have a remark, but quite an important one probably, because I believe that there might be an elephant in the room, and I want to focus on it a little bit. We have seen the Commission's proposal. It has come a little bit later than expected, but there is definitely some improvement in some particular cases. But now what will happen with the proposal? We know that it will run through the process in Parliament, in Council, and especially the process in Parliament I'm very worried about, because there will be no another ANIT committee dealing with the proposal, but it will be directed towards or handed towards Agri committee, and we know with Tran. Okay, so no envy included, just as an opinion from envy. And regarding the ambitions that come from Agri committee, I'm very skeptical about that. Like those guys in the Agri committee, they are sitting right there. Not all of them, but majority of them really believe that the current situation is okay for the farmers, you know, for everyone. So no need to improve. And I'm very much sure that they will try to wash down or water down the ambitions. So at the end of the day, we might end up with something that is not improving the situation at all, and there is even a risk that they will go beyond that and try to even water down the current situation. That has happened in several cases already. We have witnessed that. So my advice, despite being quite desperate, we don't know what will happen after the election. They're coming. Maybe we will see us again. But I maybe have a pledge for all of us just to think about actually entering the Bloody Agri Committee, to diverse it a little bit and to really crush the homogeneity that is in there, which is really not of any use for animals, for environment. And we know how strong the Agri Committee can be, so this is just a humble pledge for all of us. Let's be brave in that regard and try to change things also in there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then the last MEP who asked for the floor, it's Annika, please. And then also afterwards I come back to the non-MEPs, but I will let them reply and then I come back to you.
Merci Tilly, merci beaucoup et merci à nos trois intervenants pour...
Well, thank you so much to the different speakers for all their explanations. Really interesting comments. Mrs. Lazar and Mrs. Moit, this research, this economic research difference of transporting live animals or carcasses. I've also understood some other points which are really useful to try to talk in favor of the transport of carcasses, which is what we asked for during the inquiry. And the results were very disappointing. Two important points I'd like to raise. We need to speak about the slaughterhouses that are as closest as possible, or even mobile slaughterhouses that go to the farms. And I know that farmers do take care of their animals. It would cause less stress for animals. The Commission has actually approved mobile slaughterhouses for all species. Unfortunately, this is only going to cover a very short, a very limited number of animals. Mrs. Lazar has asked for the support to her project. So how can we do this? Can you give us any recommendations as to how we can support this particular project?
I will give the floor to Iris. We have 5 minutes more interpretation. Thank you very much for that. And then we will have to switch to English to all. But Iris, the question of Niels and also the remark of Michel, where you want to start.
Yeah, thanks a lot for your very good questions. Regarding some of the journey times, we don't know where they come from. Not from EFSA recommendations. I think you are right. For animals, except for animals going for slaughter, it's allowed to transport them 21 hours. Then they have to be unloaded for 24 hours at a control post, and then the journey can continue for another 21 hours. And then the animals have to reach the destination. We believe that these 21 hours are related to the allowed driver's times. So this is they are not related to the animals. Of course, EFSA recommends very short journey times, so I think they belong to the driver's times. And your question regarding the so-called certification bodies, which should prove better enforcement in third countries. They need an accreditation, but we had that before during the times when there were still export subsidies paid for animals. We had these certification bodies in third countries checking the arrival of the animals. And I think you could get in contact with Olaf. They have a long history, the anti-fraud office, about these certification bodies. So I don't have any trust that this will work in the future.
Maybe one more remark you would like to add on the comment of Michel or of the mobile slaughtering Or is there something you want to add? I will ask the same question, even though there were not direct question to the other experts, if they want to react.
Yeah, no, of course, it's just kind of what you said. It's the situation how it is now, and so of course we all hope that this proposal that they will bring it, that the process will continue. On the other hand, maybe it's good we still have another year to work on it and to reveal evidence on these aspects that we really cannot let them go with. You know, it's just not good enough, this proposal. Thank you.
Yes, knowing that the TRAN and the Agri Committee, as TRAN is also on board with this, are not, if I may say so, but I think everybody knows, the most progressive committees. But on the other hand, we have a very good report that analyzes the situation. It really picks up all the the issues that we have, even though the recommendation don't go any far enough. We have very good analysis and we have recommendations, so they cannot also completely ignore that. Maybe you say you are too optimistic, but okay. But I wanted also the other experts, if they want to react, and then I give the floor to Gabrielle Pon and to Christophe Marie. But maybe online the experts, if you want to add something.
Yes, please. In terms of the evidence base, I suppose the report we've also completed is something that can contribute to this process as well. So from the perspective of there being a very compelling case for change for the sector itself in terms of the economics, environmental and societal benefits for delivering change, which could move towards a carcass trade. I think that's got to be something that's very much focused upon, and the need to have a strategy in place that facilitates that in reality, because I think there is that case. We also need to undertake further research to continue building on this. So I suppose from the perspective of the work we've done so far, it's putting out a call for support to continue that process, so that the agricultural sector can see the value to making that shift, because obviously from a point of view of looking at kind of some of the concerns around that, around those changes, we think there's a compelling case to mitigate those. It's just being able to have the support to facilitate a strategy that will engage and co-create with the agricultural sector to move towards a carcass-only trade, and looking at, as you say, about slaughter at source and things like mobile slaughter, for example. So that was just a point I wanted to add. I don't know if my colleague Eva wanted to add anything in addition.
We were in the same lines, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. No, the example that Annika brought on we need to push also for more mobile slaughtering. It really touches that the transport of animals is only one element of is a symptom of a whole system that we have to change. So it's also is related to the committee of ITRE, of IMCO, and so on and so forth. But now, and we have to switch to English. Thank you to the interpreters, but they did already 5 minutes more. Thank you for that. I give the floor to Gabriel Pon for his reaction and question.
Thank you. Dear ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Mrs. President, for giving me the floor. I'm Gabriel from Animals International, one of the few people who have been in third countries. So my remark is regarding the third countries, Africa, Asia, the Gulf, and so on. It's rather a remark based on a story which happened in this room 3 years ago, on another meeting of the intergroup, following a live intervention by me at BBC when we published an exclusive with them about exported British animals to third countries. And there was a British MEP sitting just over there who kindly approached me and asked for the vision, because he said he would take it to the Westminster to present it to the MPs in UK. And the message from my side was clear. From everything I have seen, 100%, the live trade to third countries cannot be improved. It cannot be fixed. It has to be stopped. He got the message loud and clear, and he did it. Because now, 3 years later, UK announced through the parliament and through the freshly appointed king, that the live export is history from the UK, based on moral grounds of the society, animal rights, and also economical benefits for the countries. The UK understood well that by exporting animals alive, they're exporting added value and jobs. So I'm coming back, and I'm just wondering, because the ENID committee went so great, and where did that got lost? Why have we forgotten about the main thing? Why are we keep having a proposal here which is definitely not a step forward and allowing exporting jobs, added value, and subsidies? Nobody spoke about that. We give subsidies to farmers for exporting that added value. And I don't think that's very smart from us, and this should not be forgotten. And whatever the future brings, those MEPs and the people from the Commission which are supporting this version of the revised regulation should understand that along with that, farmed and transported animals are an unexploded zoonotic bomb. And we should be very careful with that, but because it comes with a very, very big liability. And it's not going to be the industry that is going to take the liability when this will happen. And it's going to be the parliament and it's going to be the commission to fix that. So I would say to those MEPs and the people from the commission which disregarded completely the argument against live export to third countries, good luck with that.
Thank you very much for your strong and so right message. I must say I have been member also of the special COVID committee, where I really insisted and had to fight for this, the concept of One Health. So yeah, and also we asked for study also on antimicrobial resistance that is fostered by the transport of animals throughout Europe, and in general the spreading of diseases with all those transports. So it's also, and especially in the concept of One Health, what we are doing there, how we treat animals, it touches the whole ecosystem of our lives and also the health of human beings. So that is an argument I always saying, if you are not doing it for empathy with animals, then do it for human health. So it's a good point, but we definitely need to go on with the fight of banning export of live animals outside the EU, especially linked to far traveling that is linked to that and to all that what comes with us. And you didn't mention the cruel slaughtering that is happening then, and the situation also you showed in your presentation. So thank you very much also for your support. And I really take the floor. I know there are still more than 60 people online. I really want to thank again what all the NGOs are doing, going on the ground, giving us information, giving us really proof on what's going on the ground. We wouldn't have, as I always said, the special inquiry committee without the NGOs and all the work they are doing on the ground. So I would like to finish the presentation on really thanking the NGOs for all they're doing every day, and since years, like Iris and others, probably Gabrielle, also on the ground. So let me conclude by really saying that we have the next session on the 5th of February 2024, and we will discuss the protection of large carnivores in Europe, an issue that is widely discussed these days, you know, about waiving the protection status on wolves, but this is not only about wolves, this is also about other wild animals like bears, and we know that there are possibilities of coexistence, but that is something we're going to discuss on the 24th of February. So thank you very much, also all the people online. Thank you for the people that were here today, and especially thank you to the experts that for the excellent presentations today. Have a good day. Take care.